Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Horror Film Where Horror is Forever. And we continue on the Freddy Krueger Nightmare Train. That's right, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 3, Dream Warriors. Jeff, how you doing, man?
Oh, we're making it through. I'm becoming more blissfully aware how little I remember of Nightmare on Elm Street just from watching it as a kid. Because this movie and the last one, and I'm sure the next one, I said it in the first review, was that I remember certain elements from Nightmare on Elm Street as a franchise, and those elements were just exclusively the Freddy moments, like when he appears. And this movie had a bunch of them that I remembered, and I remembered nothing about the movie around it. So it was basically my first watch doing this, and I love when I do reviews right after a first watch because that's when it's really raw.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since I've seen this film, so I was pretty excited to go back and watch it. Kind of like you said, it's been a while since I was a kid. Typically when I've tried to go on a Nightmare on Elm Street marathon, I usually make it to the first two films and then I just kind of end up doing something else. Not because I don't like them, I don't know. I've just have been unable to make the time to make through all of them, so that's why we're doing this. So this is not it's not the first time I've seen this movie, but it's the first time in a long time I've seen it. And from what I've seen online and what I've seen from the Nightmare on Elm Street, fans online, and this is just the consensus. A lot of people consider this or the original the best movie in the franchise. So I was very interested to see what those people saw. And what are your thoughts on that?
I
I
lost
see
audio. Hold on.
you're good.
Complete amateur hour. I got to change my setup in case you couldn't tell, and I'm just not prepared for it. But what I am prepared for is to hear your opinions on Nightmare on Elm Street 3 because I saw the same things that you did. Was everyone was saying this is the best one, this is the best sequel, this is just as good as the original. Look, I was making claims like that with Halloween 4. Let's see, man. Let's see if this is the Halloween 4 of a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Let's see if it's as good as or better than the first one. And I think a big part of that obviously is the Wes Craven name.
Correct.
Wes Craven attached to this screenplay and in some element, which he wasn't on the last one. I wonder if that prepared people for the idea that this was going to be the best one. I feel like they saw the name and immediately got their hopes up and rose tinted glasses, maybe. I don't know. But before we even jump into that, tell me, were they right or were they wrong?
Man, I gotta be honest. There are some parts of this movie that I really, really liked, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some parts that I think I did not like that much. And I gotta be honest, it, this could just be me because I have not seen this movie the amount of times I've seen the first and the second, so it could grow on me. I think this is a solid movie. I really do. I do enjoy it. I would go back and watch this again. As a matter of fact, I want to go back and watch it again to see if there's some stuff I missed and didn't pick up on because there's a lot of elements that I do like, but there's some things in this movie that I really did not care for. And I don't know if that's because I haven't seen it enough or just because I just simply don't like it. And I got to be honest, the main thing, oh God, this is going to piss a lot of people off. The main thing I did not like about this movie, honestly, was Freddy.
But
I, listen, he's got some fantastic one liners in this movie. He really does. And he's got some of welcome to prime time, bitch. We all love that. We love that. We love the let's get high. That stuff's iconic. Do not get me wrong. I love that. But this this isn't necessarily Freddy's fault, Robert England's fault. They really in this movie they started to show Freddy more. He's not in the shadows. He's making a lot more jokes. This is when we started to get the comedic side of Freddy. And to me, I like the first two movies of Freddy being more sinister, more dark. So while I did enjoy Freddy, I think he's also one of the things I did not enjoy about this movie as much. I know that's going to sound controversial, but that's just how I felt.
That's like heresy, but I get it. You're right. He, he hadn't become a full one-liner, punchline comedy, horror comedy icon at this point, but he does have more one-liners than he did in the original. And I get what you're saying. I like the "Welcome to Prime Time," bitch. I think that slaps, man.
No, that's
I
classic.
I don't know if it was because of Rick and Morty or something else, but Freddy Krueger becoming synonymous with the word bitch is like one of the best character developments off screen you could possibly have. And I love it. Like, welcome to prime time, bitch. Like it slaps so hard. And I love it. And especially in that scene too, such an iconic kill. I get what you're saying about the humor. And I'm right there with you in that camp, man. It's campiness. It's that 80s campiness and some of the 90s campiness that we haven't gotten to yet. Horror. Quick backstory: the first script of this movie was written by Wes Craven, the godfather of Nightmare on Elm Street. Everything you like about this movie, you can thank him for it. Everything that was campy about it, everything that was kind of comical, 80s, over the top, fun, you can thank Frank Darabont and the other writer, who I cannot place his name right now. Came in and did rewrites. So Wes Craven had I'd say about 50% of the script that you ended up seeing, and and Darabont and his co-writer they were praised for adding fun to the movie where fun had not been in the last two installments. And a lot of people, there's a good audience for fun horror. I'm not in that audience. I like the serious side of things. If you're gonna have something that's half serious and half campy, you got half a movie to me, man. I'm not a fan of camp. I'm not a fan of bad for the sake of having fun. I don't like that, man. I like my movies to take themselves seriously and take the audience seriously. Not that this movie didn't do that, but you start to see glimpses of where this franchise is going to go in terms of humor and whimsical attitudes. To each his own. A lot of people praise this movie because of the campiness. I don't, but I do praise it for the horror aspects that Wes Craven brought to the table. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are some I do love camp sometimes. It just kind of depends on the mood I'm in. It kind of depends on if I know I'm going to go into a campy movie.
Yeah.
A lot of times I can enjoy it if I already know that, but here nor there, let's kind of get into it. Let's start to break this thing down a little bit. So we'll start with the beginning here. We have this young girl named Kristen, and they don't play around too much. It's pretty upfront what's happening from the first couple minutes of the film. These young kids are back to having nightmares, and Freddy is back. And there's no kind of like build up really or anything. She starts in the beginning. She's making like a paper mache house out of like popsicle sticks. And again, it's the house from the original film. They're really trying to build this house up as like this house equals Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really trying to do that. And then she's having a bad dream, and she starts to, you know, have dreams about Freddy. And essentially what happens is we have this scenario, which I do like this idea that they come up with here about the Dream Warriors, where they have these kids and they all are in like a mental in a I'm not going to say an asylum, some sort of institute or whatever, because they're all having trouble with their dreams, and they're all having dreams about Freddy. And I love the concept of you having these group of kids, because it's very similar to the first and the second film, but you put them all in one scenario where they're all having these similar dreams and they're trying to tell these doctors. And again, this is maybe my number one flaw with this movie. And this could be a nitpick to some, but to me, it's a huge deal. I just, you've got two movies, and maybe somebody could pull me out. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. But you've got two movies in the canon so far that have established that these teenagers, when they're having these dreams and they finally admit to it, they all say, yes, there's this man in a hat, a green and red sweater, burnt face. He's chasing me in my dreams. He's trying to kill me in my dreams. You are third movie into this franchise. You were in an institute that specializes in dreams. All these kids are from Elm Street, and they are all having the same dreams about being killed by this guy. And the doctors are like, "Oh, you just need to go to sleep. Oh, it's just because of your guilt or your past trauma." I just, I don't understand. I mean, I get it. It's a movie. You have to, continue the plot. But if that's happened in two previous films and it's happening again and you still don't get it, that just blows my mind how dumb the doctors act. It infuriated me.
Yeah, that is all too common, and that's such an easy, low-hanging fruit for a character arc to begin with. The snooty doctor or teacher or parent who's just like, it's all in your head, dismissing it, not listening. That way, the audience is getting frustrated and wanting to shake their TV, like, listen to him. All too common. And the main doctor character, who ends up becoming one of the heroes of the story, has the nice turnaround that I love. I absolutely love when a character in a horror movie is dismissive but willing to listen. He is not convinced, but he's open to it. I don't want someone to be too easily convinced. I don't want someone to be completely impossible to reason with. I like it when someone's like, all right, I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. And they go along with it. And they might not believe wholeheartedly, but they end up, they allow themselves to have an open mind. And that kind of character arc is good. I really, really like that in horror movies. It happened with Sheriff Meeker in Halloween 4, where
Yep.
they're like, they don't fully believe you, but they're willing to listen. So that is a really good character trait. I like that a lot, and it makes the doctor character likable. Whereas some of his colleagues are just like, this is all in your head. You just need to be sedated. I hate that, and I hate getting mad at these characters because I'm so obligated to get mad at those characters. They were written for the purpose of the audience hating them. So it's so one dimensional to me, and I don't like that, but I know it's intentional. So I really put a lot of respect on the characters who don't believe at first, but are willing to listen. I like those kind of characters.
I agree. The Dr. Gordon character you're talking about, he does have a nice arc throughout the film. I really didn't like him too much in the beginning, but I really started to like his character as the movie went on. So you are right, and I get it. Hey, some of these characters are written to be frustrated at because it's just the way the movie trope is. I get it, but the main head doctor, Dr. Sims, the lady, which, by the way, last night I was just doing a little bit of research. She's almost 100 years old. She's still alive.
Oh, the colleague, the doctor?
The Dr. Sims, yeah.
What?
I know. I looked it up. She's 99. I can't remember the actress's name, but I was shocked.
Kudos to her. That's awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully she listens to this review and knows that I was a little upset with her character, but congrats to her as being 100. I get it. It's the whole, you need to go to sleep. You need to get some sleep. But I just, if it was the second movie, okay. But just after two movies now into this film, into this series, and these people are still not, and then we have Nancy makes her return, and she's been to school. She's kind of studied in this, sleep and dreams and things like that. And she's come to be a part of this clinic and try to help these kids. Dude, that's the ace in the hole. She should have walked in, which she kind of did, but they didn't believe her. Walked in there and be like, hey, I know exactly what's going on. I know how to fix it. And they were like, no, you don't know anything. I'm like, do you remember me? Because do you remember what happened a couple years ago with the whole Elm Street thing and the Freddy and it seems like everybody just forgets what happened in the first two. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they just didn't read the paper. I don't know.
There was a good amount of disconnect because of the gap the second movie left and how isolated that was story wise and character wise. There was a bit of a gap. Yeah, I know that Kristen is seeing the house, but it's never. Doesn't Jesse still live there from the second movie? Are we just gonna ignore that? So I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent, but it there is a good amount of disconnect, and I think that plays a big part in people not believing. I almost didn't even pick up on the fact that this mental ward was in the same town as Elm Street, and the fact that all these kids institutionalized here are from Elm Street is what I gathered. They're the Elm Street
Yes,
kids.
correct.
Um, Crazy small world, little too loosey goosey for me plot wise, but I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna give you a chance because you got Wes Craven and you're 3 movies in. I'm gonna give you a chance. All right, Nancy, welcome back. Um, can't say you blew me away in the first movie, but this movie absolutely stole the show. You nailed it. You filled the role really good. You are the epitome of what bringing a legacy actor back in 2020 is trying to do. You come back and you're like, I got this. I know this. I'm going to put my experiences to work here. And that was nice. A natural and expected arc for a character of her type. But I'm glad I didn't go the lazy route and just be like, Nancy died in a car accident 2 years later. I'm glad she came back, and I'm glad she kind of wrapped things up. That was a nice surprise. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree. I love her character in the first movie, and I was a fan of her in this movie as well. She's a nice character. Also, how about Lawrence Fishburne being in this movie?
You mean Larry Fishburne? That's how he's credited. Larry Fishburne.
Larry.
Larry, man, is young in this. I didn't know he was in this.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of the he's not a small character, but he's not a big character. He's kind of in the middle, and he
He's
just
there.
ended up becoming this huge, star. Uh,
Yeah.
that's weird. That's two Nightmare on Elm Street spawning a lot of careers. You got him. You had Johnny Depp. I mean,
Yeah.
that's two big gets right there before they were big.
Yeah. I don't know if this is Larry Fishburne's first role, but if I know it's early enough in his career to be like, oh my God, I didn't know he was in that. But
Correct.
the important thing that is coming back is Robert Englund as the legend himself, Freddy Krueger. I know you talked about how you didn't like how he was done in this movie with the jokes, but on the flip side of that, I think there were a lot of elements of this that made Freddy come out with a bang. Like, and most of it, I'm sure, is because of Wes Craven and his creative ideas. But I got to say, some of the appearances of Freddy in this movie are more powerful than the first one. The one that comes to mind is the one where Kristen's dreaming and she's in the house and she's in the room, and they do that awesome spinning shot where the walls and the drywall is cracking and exploding around her. Love that shot. That is a beautiful shot. All practical. And then the giant Freddy worm comes out of the floor. All practical effects, all animatronics. Patricia Arquette is getting thrown around by that thing. Dude, tell me you like that scene.
That is a cool scene. And it looks like a penis, but it is a cool scene.
It
It is
does.
a cool scene.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the practical effects in this film are really really good. I will give it that. Especially with the kill. I'll kind of get into that now. So as we are, all these kids are in this mental ward or whatever. They're all having dreams. They've all kind of got their different. You got the kid in the wheelchair. You've got Kincaid, who he's kind of the loudmouth guy, and then you've got Taryn. She's kind of like the former drug addict. Then you got the wheelchair guy, and then you've got the kid that can't really talk, or he's kind of mute. I'm sorry, I can't remember all their names off the top of my head, but
Me neither.
and then you've got the actress girl, and then you've got the kid that's a sleepwalker, which gets me to my next point. This is probably my favorite kill in the whole movie. I gotta be honest. I love maybe not kill, but just the way it's done. This kid is notorious for sleepwalking. So one night, whenever everyone's there,
And he makes puppets.
and he makes cool puppets, and that clay animation CGI Freddy puppet, that's a really cool thing. It's really cool. I do like how they did get creative in this movie. Yes, it didn't hit all the buttons for me, but they did get creative and they took a lot of chances. And I think a lot of them did pay off. I will give them kudos for that. But yeah, we get this awesome scene where Freddy is essentially turns into from a claymation doll and cuts the strings that's hanging above him. He crawls down and he becomes into real life. And this kid, I can't remember the kid's name. I'm really sorry, but he has his veins come out of his arms and his legs, and Freddy's like controlling him like a puppet because the kid would make puppets. And he's walking, and the kid's notorious for sleepwalking. So when Kincaid sees him sleepwalking, he's like, "Oh, he's just sleepwalking. He does it all the time." But in his dream, in the real and versus real life, he's being strung together by his veins and all that stuff. It's a hard scene to look at. It's gross, but it's such a good effect, and I love it.
Yeah, that scene makes me wince every time I see it,
Mm-hmm.
man. It makes me cringe. It's so well done. Easily the best kill in the movie, the best practical effects in the movie, the most creativity of an appearance, I think, in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is that scene in SpongeBob where Squidward drops the couch on his toenail and he's just dragging it back and forth or ripping it out. That shit makes me, like I can watch Saw, I can watch Cannibal Holocaust, whatever. You show me something like that or veins coming out of your arms being
Oh
used like a puppet. I don't know, man. It's just, it strikes a nerve with me. And dude, that's Wes Craven, man. And on top of that, the awesome connection of sleepwalking and puppets. It's not it. You could write a whole chapter on this, but the whole idea, like, okay, is this boy making puppets because that's how he sees himself when he sleepwalks? Like, is that really what's happening? And the puppet, did Freddy come up with that because he likes puppet, or was that Freddy's idea? And the kid is just, it's there's a whole lot to be dissected there. But the puppet master with the sleepwalking, banger of an idea. And Wes Craven has a lot of those because he came back and he established the rules for the dreams and the dream world and the dream kills in the first one, but in this movie he really expanded upon common sleep disorders, like sleepwalking for one of them, you know what I mean, or burning cigarettes to stay awake. Like he really expanded on the dream aspect of the story. And like in the beginning with Kristen running and the notorious dream that every one of us has ever had where you can't run fast and it feels like your feet are stuck in tar. Like, dude, Wes Craven, dreams. I mean, you absolutely do. So that was great. I love the puppet scene. It's that's hard imagery, man. I'd be shocked if the franchise tops that kill for real.
yeah. No, that's definitely one of the best. And so the kids earlier they were playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, and they were hanging out, and um they're taking turns watching each other sleep because they know if they both sleep, one of them they both die. One of them can't wake each other up. So the kid, I think his name's Joey. I could be wrong. The mute kid. He's sitting in the corner. He's watching the other guy sleep, and he looks and he sees that Philip, I believe is his name, had gotten all the way up to the top of the tower, and they're like, "Oh, he's gonna jump! He's gonna jump!" And they try to notify everybody, and they all get in this room and they watch him, and Freddy's in the background of the sky, and he ends up like cutting the strings that are holding the puppet together, and he falls to his death. And they all watch it. I mean, that's a tough scene. I mean, especially imagine putting yourself in those shoes and watching something like that happen. So amazing practical effects, one of the best kills in the franchise, no doubt. And yeah, Freddy gets one pretty quick in the movie.
The common theme with all these kids and the reason they're all there is one uniting theme other than Freddy is suicide. The movie has a lot of I don't want to say subtext, but it's very suicide based, suicide focused. All the kids are there because they attempted suicide one way or another.
Correct.
And it that's an interesting topic too. Yeah, especially it was a little taboo in the '80s, but that's an interesting topic too of suicide and suicidality and mental disorders and sleep disorders and being institutionalized. I think Wes Craven was saying a lot. I think a lot got cut because it was a little too dark. I know that for a fact, actually, that
Correct.
some of it got cut. But I'm interested to see what Wes Craven's first draft of the script was because I feel like it really played into the suicidality of things. And I feel like if Wes Craven had had his way with this movie, I think all of the kills would have been suicides rather than murders. But that's just me brainstorming there. I like it. I like the theme there. It's powerful and it makes you root for these characters a little bit more.
I agree. In a scene earlier on in the movie, they have Kristen's in the bathroom at her parents' house, and they have this scene where she, ends up kind of slitting her wrist or whatever. Not sure if that's Freddy or if that's her that is doing it, but yeah, there's a big theme, underlying theme here of thoughts of suicide, thoughts of mental health, especially in the 80s. I think this came out in the late 80s. This that stuff like that wasn't as talked about obviously as it is now. So this is again one of those movies where the second one, really talked about themes of homosexuality and things like that. This next movie talks about themes of mental health. And I think that's one of the things that it should get credit for this movie is that it does have a lot of themes and it really makes you want to pull for the characters more. It kind of gives like one flew over the cuckoo's nest type of vibes, where they're all kind of locked in this asylum together and everybody bands together against the evil of whatever it is. And it's definitely a movie where you pretty much root for all the characters that are in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the themes and the connectivity of everything. I don't think any. I mean, so you have the kid who likes puppets and sleepwalks, and you have the connection there with his kill and how Freddy uses that against him. Banger, 10 out of 10 idea. You also have the blonde girl who is aspiring to be an actor. She's like, as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to be an actor. And
An
after
actress.
actress, I'm sorry. And after Puppet Kid dies, she wants to stay up. She doesn't want to go back to sleep. She's freaked out. She's hanging out in the lounge area. She's watching late night television, as naturally she would. Some interview about how to be an actress or something.
Correct.
And obviously, she drifts off to sleep, hallucinates. Freddy, but awesome appearance, top 5 appearances, honestly. Giant technological arms come out of the TV, grab this young girl. A head wrapped in basically latex pops up out of the TV, delivers the iconic line, and kills her with the TV. That's welcome to prime time, bitch. It's right on point with what her character arc is, just like the kid who likes puppets was. So that's another awesome kill, and how their own vices are used against them. That's used a lot in this movie, and it's just cleverness, man. I don't care how good your kills are. If there's no thought behind them, and there's no like, oh yeah, I see it, you're not going to punch as hard as you could. So TV kill, fitting for the wannabe actress, dude. I mean, you can't argue with that.
No, you can't. And I know I said in the beginning that there are some things I didn't like about Freddy in this movie, but that kill, everybody loves that kill. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's iconic. And one of the things I even love is before that, I went back and I replayed this scene several times. Is that whenever she's watching TV, it's the talk show talking to an actress. I can't remember the actress's name, and apparently the talk show host in real life, he was like, I would never have this actress on a talk show ever. So they invited her on for the movie for the sake of, watching her die. And the the host goes like, "Can I tell you something?" And she goes, "What?" He's like, "No one gives a fuck what you think."
And you can see, like, before it cuts,
Oh
before it
my
comes back to
god.
being Freddy, you can see it's the host, and he's actually saying it. That's so funny. I love
Like
that.
even though there are some scenes in here that I don't like with Freddy with some of his comedic stuff, the ones that hit are really funny,
Mhm.
especially with that and then the Welcome to Prime Time, bitch. I mean, that's a classic. And then as you mentioned earlier, Freddy Krueger and the word bitch, I mean, that just is synonymous.
Love
I,
it, man.
I think there's like a whole like montage of him saying that word on
Oh
YouTube
yeah,
and all the movies. It's great.
yeah. I guess this became his trademark in this movie, and dude, I'm all for it. I don't care how funny the movie is. Make him say "bitch." That's so funny to me. And Rick and Morty did a great parody of that. Have you ever seen that? The Rick and Morty episode with Freddy Krueger?
I don't think so. I need to watch it.
It's old. It's and they got to knock off Freddy Krueger, and after every single line of dialogue, he says "bitch."
I love it. So yeah, that's funny. And then one thing I wanted to mention this, the character of Kincaid, the black guy in the movie, he's my favorite character in this movie. He is.
Yeah.
And because he is absolutely hilarious. And I love before that scene, I think after the puppet kid dies, they have like a group talk, and they're like kind of talking about everything. And he's like, yeah, he got killed because he was weak. And then all the other kids start like kind of ganging up on him. And then the doctor's like, that's it. You're going into the cell tonight for God, what are they? Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck you, I ain't going to sleep.
Yeah, he was very outspoken.
Oh, he just the whole movie, he just like, yeah, he does not care.
He's a comic relief for sure. And
He is.
he called Freddy Krueger a pussy at one point.
Oh my god, yeah, that's that part later on. The movies are great. So that happens. They take him to the slammer for the night, and yeah, I mean, at this point, we're kind of starting to get the gist of this, and then Nancy finally kind of gets in Dr. Gordon's ear, and she's like, "Hey, I know what to do to make the situation right." And she's like, "You just got to trust me." And earlier in the movie, he finds out that she's on Hypnosil, which is a dream repressant, and that's kind of tries to help, keep Freddy out. And apparently, it's a highly experimental drug, and all the doctors are like, "No, we're not going to take that. Like, we can't prescribe that." So she kind of gets in his ear eventually, and is like, "Hey, I know what's going on here. I know what we need to do." So eventually, they get into this after the loss of a couple of these characters, unfortunately, we get into this thing where Nancy's like, you all have, because also earlier in the film, Kristen falls into a dream, and Nancy realizes she's in a dream and then falls in that dream and tries to save her. So you start to get a little bit of this pattern that they all have this connection where they are dream warriors, and they can go in and out of each other's dreams to try to help each other. And that's where this dream warriors kind of gets its name from.
Yeah, so it was my understanding that it was Kristen who had the ability to pull others into her dream.
Correct. You're right.
They
Correct.
they couldn't all hop dreams. And let's talk about the Dream Warriors for a second. Obviously, the subtitle of the movie. The concept of the Dream Warriors, these group of kids that have different abilities to band together against Freddy. Corny or nah?
I don't think it's, I mean, I think it is, I could see where people think it is a little campy. For me, that wasn't really what bothered me the most about the movie. As a matter of fact, I think it's a cool concept. I mean, I think, hey, I mean, what else would they really do? I mean, you've already had two movies where you've had people going in, it's just one person with dreams, it's the main character. I mean, if you were to do that again, it would be, a little bit redundant. So I like the risk they took. I think it's a cool concept because I think you get a mix of characters that you really like. Could they have maybe executed some stuff better? For sure, but I'm actually okay with that concept. I didn't find it campy at all, actually.
Yeah, it's not the cheesiest thing I've ever heard. It's not as cheesy as the Cult of Thorn or anything like that, but and it's definitely no Evil Dies Tonight, but I think
Nothing
it
is.
I I feel like it wasn't as fleshed out as maybe it should have been. I feel like it maybe should have spent 15 extra minutes explaining how each character has their own like quirk about them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you got Kincaid who's strong, but you never see that until he dreams. Like yeah, he's outspoken and yeah, he throws temper tantrums, but you never get the idea that he's like the brawler of the group. He's just
Right.
big. And Taryn, the former drug addict, what's her power? She's punk with knives. Eh, come on, like Kristen's got powers. And
I
I,
I do love the scene where they kind of all get their powers later on, and she's like, "What's your power?" And she's like, "I'm bad."
I got a mohawk.
I got She just transforms into like a punk rock like mohawk. She got like two switchblades. Like it is kind of random. I do see what you're saying. It is kind of a little campy, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the puppet kid was fleshed out, the actress kid was fleshed out, but the mute, like I get the whole idea of him getting tied to the bed, like tongue tied.
Correct.
Haha, I get it. Like your own vices are used against you. Um, and then at the end he screams like wicked loud. So I
Correct.
guess that's the power. So, but I don't know. I don't going into it. I didn't like the idea. I still don't like the idea. I probably would have never written it that way. I'm okay with it because it's the '80s, but I feel like any other time that would be just I don't know. I feel like the campiness adds some nostalgia to it that
Yeah.
is being mistaken for undeserved respect. I the Dream Warriors. I'm not a fan of that concept. I would have rather seen another Nancy Freddy story.
Speaking of Dream Warriors, this movie has a song named Dream Warriors by the band Dokken. And this is as 80 as it as 80s as it gets. A 80s band named Dokken. If you don't know them, look them up. They were a part of this movie. They made the song Dream Warriors. It plays at the end of the song. It's a music video and it's all this. This is right when it started to become like MTV Freddy, kind of the kickoff of that. So a lot of mainstream appeal and crossover, and a lot of people love this film just for that. They love it because this is like, hey, they love Doc and they love this movie. Combine them together.
This movie just like bleeds '80s from every scene in the script. Like it's the most '80s thing. You put that song on for 1 second, you'd be like, "Oh, that's a hair band from the '80s." This is so like, and it's good because the set pieces aren't dated. Like
Correct.
there's not a lot of pop culture references in the movie,
Yep.
but it's just the whole attitude about the movie and the whole direction that they went, and the song obviously the most '80s shit you could ever get. Like a
Yeah.
hairband, man. Come on.
No, I agree. It is definitely 80s. It's either going to be for you or it's not going to be for you. Um, so and at some point in this film, I want to get your opinion on this. We get introduced to this other character. There's a lot of pieces in this movie, and I give it credit for that for trying to, try to make it's a small story, but it feels big. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of characters. There's a lot more characters in this movie than any of the first two films. Um, the nun character, which I'm not going to reveal who she is just yet, but the nun character pops into this movie and she's talking to Dr. Gordon and, kind of trying to, let him know, um, give him hints as to what's going on. How'd you feel about her?
Completely phoned in, or not phoned in, shoehorned in.
Really?
It really didn't do anything for me. It didn't take away from the movie like maybe another film might have, but it did not add anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
She added the backstory of Freddy Krueger being the spawn of a nun who was made pregnant by 100 criminally insane people.
Correct.
Tragic reason for Freddy being born. Scary imagery, scary idea, creative idea. Didn't do anything for me. If anything, it probably took away from what made Freddy, teeter the fence between likable and not likable in the first movie. Because what you're implying here is that there is some kind of supernatural or at least biological reason for Freddy Krueger being evil. He's a child murderer. That's it. That's the backstory. I didn't need to know about how he was conceived evil. Doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of putting a hat on a hat, at least to me. But he's a child murderer who was murdered by the parents and wants revenge by killing the kids in their dreams. Sweet. Oh, before he was a child murderer, he was the spawn of 100 rapists? Okay. I guess. Endgame is still the same. So I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. I might be crazy about it if they explore it more in the next sequels. Later on in the franchise, if they expand upon that, or maybe we see some of that, some flashbacks or something, and we see how that affected Freddy's upbringing. Hey, I might be okay with it. But right now, that was so just like uh, hat on a hat is what I'm saying. You could cut that part from this movie completely and just keep the other parts of what that nun has brought to the story, and it'd be the same. So I don't really know what the 100 Maniacs backstory is for, but It's not the worst I've ever heard, but it did nothing for me.
I'm like you. I did like her character. Was it needed? No. I just thought she kind of gave like a ghostly feel. I don't know. I like the actress
Yeah.
and what she did, but I agree with you 100%. Freddy's backstory that they made in the first film is concrete solid. You don't need anything else. He was a child murderer, and then he was killed by those parents on Elm Street, and he's come back for revenge. That's it. That's all you need. You
That's
don't
it.
need anything else. To have this whole son of 100 maniacs and to have this whole backstory about this lady being raped and then giving birth to Freddy, and it's just like he's born evil. It's like I get it, but I could have I'm not for it. His original story is the best. He was a child killer, he was burned alive, he's come back for revenge. That's all you
Yeah,
need to do. You don't need anything else.
exactly. And I feel like that was thrown in there to make him seem either more evil naturally or more sympathetic. Like, oh, it's in his nature. It's not his fault. Were you going that route? Because if you were, you didn't do anything with it. Were you going the route of, oh, he was born naturally evil? It's nature versus nurture. Like Freddy is always has been evil. Okay, you going somewhere with that? No, you're not going anywhere with that. So I don't know. Cute idea. Didn't play out in the third act at all.
Correct. Um, I agree 100%. Yeah, just kind of one of those things. So as the movie goes on, they start to kind of, realize their dream powers, and they through hints that, that the doctors picked up from the nun is that the real way to kill Freddy is to bury his remains. So what they do is they're like, well, where are his remains? We don't know. And then that's when John Saxon's character, Nancy's dad, comes into play. So if you remember from our first review of the first Nightmare on Elm Street, her dad, he's the police chief or whatever of the town of Springfield and Springwood, and he's kind of become jaded from they both become jaded from each other since the events of the first film. And I kind of like what they said in the beginning. A doctor was asking Nancy, like, hey, what happened to your parents? She's like, my mom died in her sleep. It's kind of funny because she kind of did die in her sleep.
She is not wrong.
She's not wrong. So it's kind of interesting how they play that off. So that happens, and we kind of figure out John Saxon. He's just kind of this like classic low life now. He's living in a bar. He's drinking himself to death because he's just got a lot of guilt and shame about what's happened. So Nancy and the doctor have been fired because their things are not working. Kids are dying. It's not working at all. And so they've been fired. Well, they go to this bar to go find her dad. And he's like, oh, it's nice of you to come see me. You can tell he's kind of drunk. And then she's like, I'm not going to help you. And then they get a call that Kristen has acting up, and they put her in the slammer for the night. And she's drugged up, getting ready to fall. The slammer, getting ready to fall asleep for the night. And the other kids know like she's going to die in there. And so the doctor's like, look, you go try to get in there and save her. I'll stay here with your dad. We'll try to find Freddy's remains. And I love the scene from the doctor where he gets this look on his face. He just walks up. He's like, I'm Dr. Gordon. He's like, all right, and flips the table and he grabs him. He's like, I don't know if you care about your daughter, but I do. And he just loses it. It's absolutely hilarious. I love that scene.
Yeah, it becomes heroic real quick. Dude, John Saxon, legend. Okay, I don't know what it is, but John Saxon just nails it this time around in the little cameo role that he has. Even playing like a tipsy, distant father. Like, dude, he nails it, man. He's the best. I want to see more of him, and I'm glad that he came back in the in the capacity that he did. I love John Saxon, man.
Yeah, great character. He's a classic tough guy. I love it. And when the doctor jacks him up, he's like, "Get your hands off me!" He's like, "I'm John Saxon."
I'm John Saxon.
So Nancy goes to the hospital. She's trying to break in and kind of save the kids. Right now, we're down to Kincaid. the kid in the wheelchair. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, and then Taryn. And then they go to try to find the remains, which are in this junkyard. And while they're doing this, they all kind of band together, and they try what they tried earlier, to where they can kind of be in each other's dreams and be dream warriors. Well, this time it works. They're able to kind of get Kristen kind of pulls them into their dream, or they go into her dream. So it's all of them. They're trying to team up in their dreams to fight Freddy. And on the other side, they're over there trying to look for the remains. Now, this is, I understand it's the 80s, but man, this part here I'm about to say really dated this film a lot. That like CGI claymation, whatever it was,
Oh,
with the
yeah.
skeleton. Holy hell, dude, that is
Dude.
bad. That is bad. So bad.
That's
That is
like
so bad.
that's like the worst movies of the 60s. Like that's what you show in like your introduction to filmmaking class. Like that's and I get it. I get it's a cool idea, but
Yep.
the claymation earlier was awesome because claymation is naturally scary. It has a little
Correct.
bit of that uncanny valley feel. There is no uncanny valley with a 12 frames per second skeleton swinging a sword around. It's not going to land anywhere other than maybe He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Okay,
Correct.
so that dated itself really quick. Cool. I like the concept. It works on paper of Freddy's corpse coming back to fight with John Saxon. Cool. I like that. Not like that though. Looked a little bit too test footage for the first Terminator movie for me.
Yeah, it's really bad. And when you're watching like the skeleton, like Freddy's skeleton, like attack the guy, and in the background, he's like, ah. It's just, I get it at the time. It's one of those technologies where they're like, hey, like this is gonna look cool. And maybe in the 80s it did look cool. Maybe, I don't know. But in this day and age, I can't think that they were, oh man, dude, we got to think about how this is going to look in 35 years. No one thinks like that. But when you look at it now, holy shit, that was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad for a horror movie, but
Ooh.
it's not the only thing that's dated in this third act. You got all these kids in their dream sequences, in their respective dream sequences. You have Taryn, punk girl,
Yes.
or former junkie, walking down an alley where she used to shoot up, and Freddy makes his appearance, and he basically was like, I'm back, Taryn, and his fingers are no longer knives. They're needles full of whatever drug she was doing. That was pretty cool. I like that. And again, vice is being used against you by Freddy.
Correct.
Works. The needles. What you think about the arm? Her arm bit.
I like the idea, but it's just kind of weird seeing these like talking mouths for like holes in her arm. So like,
Yeah,
I understand what they were trying to do, and I'm not against it, because I do like Freddy's one-liners in this part where he does like the let's get high, like that.
Right.
That's just cool. Like it just works. But it does kind of make me laugh, not in a good way. Like when he's injecting her with the knives, his face, he's like, oh yeah. He like rolls his eyes in the back of his head.
Yeah.
And he's like, what a rush. Like you had it with the let's get high part. You should just left it at that. And then you try to go too far. And I wasn't for it.
Not subtle at all. Not subtle like the TV of the Puppet Master. Not at all. And
No.
so much for her mohawk. I'm glad she brought a switchblade to a Freddy fight. But
hey, it's weird because she stabbed him and he was kind of hurt, and then she just stopped. She's like, okay, I'm done.
She's like, that's it. I'm out.
And then he just walks up and she just backs away, and he's like, hey, I'm going to stab you with these needles. You're dead. And then go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And then as far as that scene, that's over with. And then we get this next scene, or one of the next scenes, where we have the kid in the wheelchair.
Fuck this scene, dude.
I love this kid because he's just so like nerdy. It's just perfect like 80s nerd. I love it. And he gets attacked by his wheelchair on steroids almost. And but in his dreams, he's like the wizard or whatever. He's got wizard power. So he's like Darth Sidious, and he's like shooting stuff out of his arms and his fingers. But what kills me is that he does it to Freddy. He kind of shocks him. It works. And then he just runs up to Freddy, and Freddy's like, okay, you're dead. Like you were working when you were far away distance. You were shocking him, and it was hurting him, and you just run up on him, and then he just picks you up and stabs you with his hand, and it's over.
Yeah, and as you can probably guess, I hate this scene so much. It's very cringy. I watched the movie twice for this review. Both times I had to get on my phone and do something else. I was like, oh god, you're talking about wizards and your robe and whatnot, you're shooting CGI lightning. Get out of here, dude. If you put that in the trailer for this movie, it would have bombed. Like, that's the aspect of the Dream Warriors that I don't like. That's some grade A provolone cheese, dog. I'm not even gonna lie. That was,
You heard it.
I
You
don't
know,
like that.
you know what? You know who would have made a better fill-in for that guy, for that character?
Cool.
Joe Swanson.
Joe Swanson. You know what? That would maybe watch it.
Give me Joe Swanson versus Freddy Krueger, and that's going to be a good fight. Seriously.
Especially when he walks. It's always funny to see Joe walk. It's not natural.
It's just not natural at all. So I agree. It would have been great. So yeah, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of that scene. So at this point, we're kind of down to three characters. Well, we've got Freddy versus Kincaid, Kristen, and Nancy. So they're all kind of together, and Kincaid comes up. He's like, "Come on, you burnt face pussy!" It's hilarious. And he comes out, and they all kind of try and fight Freddy. And the mute kid, they go down there and they meet him, and he's still being held up by the tongues over the bed because he was held up earlier when he was making out with that nurse. Which I gotta tell you, for that actor at that moment, he was probably loving his life when he was doing that scene. But he's held over like a fire pit of flames underneath him where the bed was, and they're all there and they try to save him. And I don't know, something about the scene. Freddy is not scary to me. It's a little too comedic. He's like, "My command is your wish," and then
you know what it is? You know what I think it is? It's the first golden rule. Don't show me the monster. I can see Freddy from head to toe immediately. I'm not scared.
I agree.
You gotta have, it's when you see it from head to toe, suddenly it's put into perspective. It seems smaller. Subconsciously, the threat seems smaller. So no, he wasn't obscured in shadow. He wasn't behind anything. He was playing visible, and he was doing his one-liners and whatever. And not to mention, you don't really care about the mute kid at all. So it is what it is. Hey, timeout. I gotta take a bathroom break that I cannot avoid.
You're good. Go ahead.
All right.
I will keep it rolling here. So yeah, that's one of those things with Freddy that kind of frustrated me in this film, is that there are a lot of things about him in this movie that I did like, as far as the one-liners and some of the one-liners, and as far as his delivery of lines, and his kills are super creative. But some of the things I didn't like are just some of the you see Freddy too much, and I know you can't keep the monster hidden forever. But the thing I liked about him in the first two films is that you don't see him as much. He's more in the shadows. He's more sinister, dark. That's how I like my Freddy. I like him more sinister. I can go for a line or two here or there, and I think it adds to the character. It makes him different. But at the same time, it can be a little frustrating, I think, for some people. So as he goes on, I know that Freddy gets more comedic as the timeline goes on in the movies, but that's just kind of is what it is. Another thing that I really don't like about Freddy in this movie is his look. He looks good, but to me, not as good as the first two films. The first two films, he's more kind of slimy and wet, and he looks more menacing. In this film, he looks a little bit more rubbery. And it's not bad because in the in later on in the series it gets a lot worse with some of his, especially like Freddy's dead. He starts to kind of look like pizza, and he's just been playing around with it. Um, but in this one, it doesn't really do it for me. It is a little, you know, it's just that is menacing for me. And while Jeff's joining back here, like I was mentioning, I said another thing that I didn't like about Freddy in this film, and you might disagree with me here, is that it's not bad because I don't think it's bad, but it's not as good as the first two movies. Is the look of Freddy? The first two movies to me, he's kind of like he's slimy, he's wet, he's more grotesque. In this movie, it seems like the mask in his body when he shows it with like the kid, like the souls of the kids, it's kind of more like a rubbery kind of, I don't know. It wasn't bad, but it didn't work for me like the first two films did. His first two looks did.
Yeah, kind of dry and leathery in this movie. Um, I don't expect the makeup to be exactly spot on every single sequel because it's very unrealistic, but his changes are subtle enough to where I think they're palatable. It's not like wearing a different mask altogether. So he was dry and leathery, and you're right. It's not realistic. I imagine a burn victim who lives in another reality is a little more wet than that. Yeah, not the best so far from what we've seen. I would say probably number two is the best look of Freddy, but they're all Freddy to me. They're not wildly different. There is a wildly different one coming, like a wildly different Freddy altogether that is coming later in the franchise that we'll talk about. But
Mhm.
as of right now, they're all plus one, minus one on the
Sure.
spectrum. They're close enough to be okay, but I get what you're saying.
Yep, absolutely. So we're kind of get to the end of this film here, and they're all trying to save the mute kid, and they end up saving him, and they're all kind of going fighting and using their powers against Freddy. And then at the same time, we've got John Saxon and Dr. Gordon trying to bury the remains. Well, Freddy kind of ends up coming to them, and Freddy ends up kind of throwing John Saxon, kills him. He kind of gets stabbed through like the chest, and then they end up beating Dr. Gordon up, and they're digging this hole where they're going to bury the remains. They throw him in there. They start to kind of cover him up with the dirt, so he's kind of knocked unconscious. And then you've got the kids, and they're trying to fight against Freddy and all that stuff, and once John Saxon dies, he comes in Nancy's dream, and he's like, I had to say goodbye to you before I passed on to the other side. And they're hugging. It's this really heartfelt moment. And then she gets stabbed in the back. Turns out it's Freddy. I love that scene. It's a great, great, great turn there. And Nancy's dying. And so to kind of save all this, you know, they start using their power, and while they're kind of struggling, Nancy kind of comes back for one last breath, and she takes Freddy and she stabs him with his own glove, which I think is a great way to kind of like imagine Michael getting stabbed with his own knife right in the chest. That's intense. I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's what it should be, and Nancy being there, it's all just very cathartic and very end of the trilogy if you want to think about it that way. But it
yeah,
works, man. And the twist of the dad being Freddy Krueger, kind of a double-edged sword because yeah, it works, and I think it delivered well this time around. I think
sure.
any other movie, it'd probably be telegraphed way in advance that that's not really her dad, but it worked this time because we as an audience knew he died. But that brings up the other side. Nancy doesn't know that he's dead. For all Nancy knows, he's sitting at the bar. So
Right.
this shouldn't have worked on Nancy as well as it did. But I get the touching moment. I get the twist. It works for us as the audience, but in the story, I don't think it works that well.
Sure. And then on the other side of things, earlier on in the movie, Dr. Gordon, he's kind of instructed by the nun, and he ends up grabbing a cross and some holy water, and he throws those on the remains, throws the holy water on the remains, and he kind of flicks the cross, and it kind of burns into Freddy's head, and then he kind of turns into kind of like the end of every movie, he kind of turns into this like light balls, and then he just dissipates, and Freddy's dead. And when this happens, um, Nancy sacrifices her life to kill Freddy to save everybody else, and she dies in Kristen's arms. So then we cut to one of the last scenes of the film. They're at Nancy's funeral, and the doctor's there. They're all there hanging out and, paying respects. And then he sees the nun kind of walk past, and we all know that the nun is Freddy's mom without having to say it. And what does this guy do? He walks to the freaking tombstone and he's like, "Oh my god, you were
wait a
his
second.
mother."
That tombstone right there amongst his other 500 tombstones. That one.
He's like, "You were his mother." I'm like, "No shit." Yeah, you should have just showed the tombstone and not said it. And it's just little things like that. I know it's a nitpick, but I know it's the 80s, but man, I don't like it.
Yeah, the whole B story of the nun guiding Dr. Gordon to bury him on hallowed ground or whatever with the holy water and the whole 100 maniacs, whatever. That whole thing could have been cut and it probably would have not hit any different for me. Um, I don't know. I'm hoping they expand upon it a little bit in the sequels about his upbringing and whatnot, but it didn't really do anything for me. The nun didn't do anything for me. It didn't add any creepiness or anything that I needed. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And then so the last scene of the film, um, Dr. Gordon, he's laying down, going to bed. And earlier on in the film, Nancy had this little dream catcher dream thing, whatever, this little figurine that she had. It's supposed to help with dreams. And he has it now, and it's sitting on his bedside along with the house that was built on a popsicle sticks earlier in the movie. And he's sitting there, he's going to bed, and then at the last second, a light flicks on inside of the house. Freddy's still alive. Here comes part 4, and the movie ends. Dawkins Dream Warriors plays, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Now, let's get to the ranking of this movie. Jeff, I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to let you do your 4 pillars of horror. Let me know what you think and give me a grade on this movie.
All right. Got to do what I do. Rule number 1, don't show me the monster. You show me more of Freddy this time around than you did in the last 2 movies. The caveat, and this is exclusive to Freddy alone, maybe Pennywise. Freddy and Pennywise have this caveat about them. It's that their form can change. You never know what form Freddy's going to take. Is he going to take a puppet, or a TV, or a worm, or whatever? So you never get enough Freddy. If every appearance of Freddy in this movie was just him in humanoid form, it'd be way too much. But because it varies and because you never know how he's going to come out, I'll give you this one. You didn't show me the monster. You move from an F to a D. Rule number 2, be scary at all times, not just when the threat is on screen. I mean, what more can I say? It's Freddy Krueger. He's always there. You always got to sleep. This is a given. D to a C. Don't rely only on jump scares. Freddy Krueger, the strength of Freddy Krueger and his movies are not the jump scares. They are the imagery and the ideas and the creative ways in which the victims are killed. So no, I don't think Freddy has to rely on jump scares at all. I mean, he does to an extent, but that's not the highlights of the movie. So no, there's no over reliance on jump scares. C to a B. Final rule: push the boundaries. You didn't push any boundaries with this one. I can't say that you did. You had creative kills. You had good writing, but good writing is not pushing the boundaries unless it's the 1940s. So I can't say that you did anything revolutionary. Yeah, you added on to the legacy of Freddy, and hey, Wes Craven, much love, right? Like this is your baby. I get it, but you didn't revolutionize it. Okay, you didn't reinvent the wheel like you did the first time. So I can't give you that one. So you're in the B range automatically. Minus regular, plus Dream Warriors is kind of cringy. Not gonna lie, but at the same time, it's pretty dope. And I'm gonna be hopeful about this, and I'm gonna hope that the further sequels and the further entries in the franchise are at least close enough to this, because this was a good movie. I'm going to give this one a B plus because I'm feeling hopeful for more installments like this, Wes Craven, you brought your magic. I love the puppet sleepwalking connection. I love the sleep disorders and the suicidality connection. Don't care about the kid in the wizard costume. Don't care about the bastard son of 100 whatevers. Don't care about that. But you made a good movie, a banger of a movie. Not better than the original. Not my favorite sequel. My favorite entry in this franchise has yet to be talked about, and we will talk about it. It's not this one, but this one is damn good. So I'm probably going to say this one's third best, not knowing what the other ones have in store. B plus. I'm ready for number 4.
All right. Well, I am pretty much on the same wavelength as you. I think as I watch this movie more and grow with it more, I hopefully think I will start to appreciate it and enjoy it more. And once I see some of the sequels, once they kind of go more camp, I think this will end up looking better. Again, this is just our personal opinion. For me, this is not my favorite film of the franchise. It's not, at least not right now, but it's just not. I'm going to give this a B minus. I think, it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things I like about this movie. I would go watch it again right now just so I could pick up on it again and try to learn some more stuff. But right now, there's a lot of things I do like, but there's some things that are, I think, a little too camp. You've got Freddy. This is not my favorite Freddy. He's too funny. The lines that he does have are great, but there's a couple things he does that doesn't do it for me. I like my Freddy a little more sinister. I do love the characters here. I like the story, but a little campy, a little and not my favorite Freddy, and a couple little plot holes here and there, but it is what it is. So for me, this gets a B minus.
No, but what did you give the second one?
I think I gave the second one, I think it was between a C plus and a B minus, kind of in between that, I think.
So would you say this one was better than the second one?
I can't tell you that until we rank all the movies.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair enough.
So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I want to give all of these a fair watch until I make my final ranking. So, but thank you guys so much for watching. We are on to A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. I think it's the Dream Master. Dream. It's either the Dream Master or the Dream Child. One of those. I can't remember. But hey, let's see what happens. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Every horror film, horrors forever. If you haven't checked out our previous reviews on the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, please do so. Happy October, everybody. We'll see y'all in the next one.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
Now, I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.